You're going for what?
Hey, yeah, we're going for woke.
Systemic racism's been real. Get this boot off my throat.
We're not here to brainwash or be choosing a side.
We're just two Asian guys here to open your eyes.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to Going for Woke. This is episode 3.2. This is the third and final episode of our series, The Real Reason Asians Are Successful. So last episode, we talked about the Cold War going on between the United States and the Soviet Union and how the Soviets kept criticizing the United States for its racial segregation and went out of its way to treat Black artists and Black Americans really, really well, to the point that many Black Americans actually immigrated to the Soviet Union during the 1930s in order to escape racial segregation that was going on here in the US. So of course, not to be outdone, the United States started treating its Asian Americans really well, to say, hey, we can treat our people of color really well too. And so basically Black Americans and Asian Americans were both being pawns used by the Soviet Union and the United States. So to go into further detail, check out our prior episodes. In today's episode, we're just going to continue that story and talk about exactly how the model minority myth was manufactured, mostly through immigration policies in the 1960s. So I hope you guys enjoy. The model minority myth, it was always false. But here's what made it even worse. 1965, the Immigration Act passes. And finally, we're getting rid of these quotas and stuff, and Asians are finally allowed to immigrate to the United States. But the Immigration Act, it strongly favored reunification. So about 74% of the immigrants coming in after the Immigration Act, it was due to family reunification. About 20% of them were for skilled workers and 6% were for refugees. And so keep in mind, remember I told you, like, every single year, you got like 50,000 German immigrants coming in, right? Year after year after year after year. Even during the time that Asians were completely excluded from America. In 1952 or something, that act passes and now the American government is letting 100 Asian people in per country every year, right? While the Germans and other European countries still sending tens of thousands. And so now, this 1965 Immigration Act passes, and you might wonder, wait, why is 74% of the immigration slots reserved for family reunification? And here's why. Here's a direct quote from one of the congressmen who helped pass the Immigration Act. Quote, "Since the peoples of Africa and Asia have very few relatives here, comparatively few could immigrate from those countries." So when we're talking family reunification, again, you're tilting the scales towards white Europeans being able to immigrate here because they're inviting their family members.
Still largely symbolic, basically.
Still largely symbolic, but so now the Asian immigrants, they have to fight over the skilled worker slot to be able to get into the United States. Right? Because they don't have family here. So what types of Asians do you think are going to end up immigrating to the United States as a result of the Immigration Act? Highly skilled and highly educated Asians.
Highly skilled, educated, and well-resourced enough to like fight for those slots. Because if you're in Asia, you're not well-resourced enough to fight for those slots. I don't got time to like fight to try to get to America. I got to make a living over here. I got to eat. I don't got time to like try to like apply to get over there.
Exactly. So you let in all these highly skilled, highly educated, and relatively wealthy Asians. Right, so they're going to give birth to kids who are highly skilled, highly educated, and relatively wealthy. That's just how it's going to pan out, isn't it? There's another reason that the model minority myth is false. And it was not only manufactured, but made worse by this 1965 Immigration Act.
And when you say made worse, just to clarify, what I think you mean is that like, it just kind of further substantiated or gave more fuel to that fire of the model minority myth, because suddenly, right, like we're saying this about Asian people and suddenly there's all these Asian people showing up in the country and they're doing really well. But it's because we like pre-selected for the people, the cream of the crop, basically, if it's okay to call it that, right? They're highly educated, they're highly skilled, right? They come from well-resourced families relatively, in Asia. And so coming over here, that's sort of their standard. And it's like, we're not going to like bring highly skilled and highly educated Asian people from Asia into America and like not have jobs for them. Like we have jobs for them to fill. So it's kind of like, we're bringing you over here. We have money and jobs for you to like fill. We're going to put your ass to work, but like you're able to do it. You know,
Yeah.
so America benefits from that, and these Asian people benefit from that. And it's like suddenly it's like, oh wow, look at all these Asian people. They seem to be doing really well. And that
America
just, like,
treats its colored people well.
and that just fuels that model minority myth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, kind of going back to that wage gap, remember in the 1940s, an Asian and Black college graduate earned as much as a white middle school graduate. But right around the 1980s, we see that gap close, right? So where the college educated Black, white, and Asian Americans are earning within the same ballpark.
mm-hmm.
Here's the thing is it's really hard to group the Asian folks into a monolith. Right? First of all, they come from all different countries. They all speak different languages and have different histories and backgrounds. So what we see is for example, this number is thrown out, like the median annual household for Asians is $73,000. But when you break down the different Asian groups, you see like a vast range.
Mm-hmm.
You got Indians at the top earning $100,000 per household. You got Japanese folks, $74,000 per household. Chinese, $70,000, all the way to Burmese families earning $36,000 per household. And what you see is there's the poverty rate. I believe it's 15% amongst Americans, but it's at a 30% rate amongst some of these Asian groups.
We're actually overrepresented also in like the poorest deciles or like percentiles
right
of the American population also.
Right.
But the model minority myth just kind of obfuscates that. Yeah, when you kind of aggregate all the Asian ethnicities together.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, adding on to 1965, when highly skilled Asians were immigrating to the US, in 1990, there was a tech boom. And a lot of Indian folks started immigrating to the US. And so again, that's highly skilled labor, high paying, highly skilled labor. And so overall, when you look at the whole Asian population within the United States, 59% of them are immigrants. 59% of them are foreign born. Right? So it goes to show it's not so much the Asians born and raised here and worked hard and got educated. I mean, that's all true too, but yeah, like a majority of them are just highly skilled and cherry picked to do well to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so, circling back to our question, the real reason Asians are successful, the real reason is because there were circumstances created for Asian folks so that we could become successful. And as we pointed out earlier, in the 1920s, Asians had a higher educational attainment than white Americans, and yet they were still getting paid half. Asian college graduate was making as much as a white middle school graduate.
Yeah. And it wasn't until it was expedient and beneficial for America to take its boot off of Asian people in America's throats that the attitudes started to change, that the policies toward Asian people started to change, to where you see the growth in Asian prosperity in America today, right? But first and foremost, that wasn't done because like out of a sense of like moral obligation. It was done because it was necessary for America in its foreign policy. And that's why they changed attitudes. They started marketing the model minority myth. They started changing immigration policy.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like it's not to, like I can feel like I can like in my mind like hear my friends, right? They're like, but I worked hard, my parents worked hard. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
They worked hard. Asian people also worked hard in the 1850s and 1860s, the 1870s, 1890s, like 1920s. Like we worked hard this whole time. You're gonna tell me that Black people don't work hard in America? Get out of here, right? But it's
Yeah.
like all that hard work in an environment though that's not supportive of you, in an environment that is hostile toward you, in its attitudes that's hostile toward you, in its policies, you're still not going to go that far, work hard as you want. I think that, to me, that's really the whole point of all of this right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason we started digging into this topic is because, right now it's 2020, it's COVID pandemic, but it's also, there was the George Floyd, murder, and Jacob Blake, Breonna Taylor, all these things are going on. And the question is, where do Asians fit into this Black Lives Matter conversation? But what we learn from this is the environment, that the political environment that exists, the attitudes of the people who are in charge of the hiring, the attitudes of the people who are in charge of the policing. All of this matters in creating good outcomes, for good and fair outcomes for all Americans.
For
And
Americans,
that's
yeah.
why I really wanted to share this with like our fellow Asian American folks. So it's just like, not to take away from the hard work and education, like Calvin said, like, my parents worked hard. But to have your hard work pay off, like that in itself is like, you have to be lucky to have your hard work pay off. If the environment isn't conducive for your hard work paying off.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's that it needs to be conducive. Like all that history that we shared from the 1800s, even like the early 1900s and stuff. The point of that is not to say, look how wronged we've been, but it's just to contrast, right? Like clearly it wasn't working for us before, and it's not because we weren't working,
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, I look at the attitudes toward like the Hispanic community or toward the Black community, and it's like there's a lot of implication that they just don't work as hard, or they just don't value the things as much, and we have to be careful that a lot of that could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, just like what we saw earlier with like Chinatowns becoming infested with like prostitution, gambling, drugs, and all those other vices, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we
Mm-hmm.
really got to be careful not to kind of put that self-fulfilling prophecy right upon the brown community or the Black community. It's just not right. You know what I mean? Like, and I think we really need to acknowledge the power of that, because in the Asian American story, we can see how that worked out for the negative, but then I think this is on the next slide, right? It also works out for the positive, also, this self-fulfilling prophecy, where at this point, for Asian Americans to have this idea that, you know what, I am smart, I am capable, right? Like, I am supposed to be good at math, I am supposed to be successful. There's this positive expectation that we just have of each other to succeed. And so we tend to live up to those expectations. And that's a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. Why not have that for Americans, period? Like, why have an environment where Russians or whatever other like foreign actors want to exploit like tensions in here? Why give them that space to exploit? Why not have a positive self-fulfilling prophecy for all of us here? Like, how is that not going to benefit America in general?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So that wraps up our series, The Real Reason Asians Are Successful. Hope you guys enjoyed the series. Hope you feel a little bit more woke as a result of the episodes. Just a quick life update. Calvin had baby number 2 several months ago. And for me, I've had a couple personal and work issues I was working through. All that to say, sorry for the long hiatus. Haven't been able to create as much content as we wanted to. Moving forward, I mean, Calvin's got his hands full. He's running his own business and he's got 2 babies. So he won't be able to co-create these episodes with me as much as he wants to. As for me, I mean, I'm married, but I ain't got no kids, so life is still pretty chill. I like to spend my spare time going down rabbit holes and doing my research and answering questions and just sharing what I learn. So I'm just going to keep pushing forward, create as much content as I can. In the meanwhile, would love to hear from you guys. Best way to do that is to hit us up on YouTube and just leave a comment, questions, suggestions for upcoming topics. YouTube link is in the description below. And in the meanwhile, thanks again for spending your time with us, and let's keep going for woke. Peace.